It was just like it was yesterday. Where's time gone?
Well, now, how did you get hired here?
Well, I was going to school at LMU, and of course, I was raised on a farm. My mother and daddy just farmed, and then I decided that I wanted to work for the summer and then go back to school that fall. But I had been there at LMU one whole year, summer and winter. And so I came down, and I talked with Miss Reynolds and asked her if she was going to hire anybody for the summer. And she told me to come back in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I went back, and she hired me.
And that's the rest is history?
Well, I liked it so well I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go back to school.
Well, now tell us your full name, your maiden name, and where you were born and grew up.
Okay. Mildred Asbury. Well, my full name is Mildred Bullard Asbury. And I grew up in Speeple in Claiborne County and lived there until I was 17, I think, when I started working here at the bank. And then I got, I didn't leave Speeple until I got married in 63.
Okay. Now, where'd you go to high school?
Powell Valley High School.
Class of?
56.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, great year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was.
Okay. So what was your first year here at the bank, 56 or 57?
57.
Okay, well, I guess if I did the math, we're celebrating your 60th anniversary here. It would take me back to 57, wouldn't it?
It would. Sure would.
Is there anything, Mildred, that has stood out over the years in your memories of working here at the bank? Stories, something funny, something sad, maybe something that's really stuck with you?
Well, I'd have to think, but there's been a lot of it.
Who was your very first customer? Do you remember?
Well, I remember Dr. Sargent walking in the door, and I had a yellow dress on that day. And he said to Nellie Myers, he said, "Nellie, who's that girl over there in that yellow dress?" I remember that well.
And that was day one?
That was day one. I'll never forget Dr. Sargent.
Well, have you been here through 2 changes to the building and the structure here on the corner?
3.
3?
See, I came to work in the old building, and then in 60 they built the green building, as people called it, and then this building. So I've worked under 3 presidents and 3 buildings.
Oh, my goodness. No finish line in sight for you to retire?
No, I'm not going to sit at home and look out the window and watch the cars go by. As long as I can get up and go, I'm going to get up and go.
Well, fantastic. Now, of course, some things have changed in the banking industry over the years. Maybe 1 or 2 that top the list?
You mean like employees or what?
Well, maybe a little bit of both, but obviously lots of changes in the industry.
Oh, well, I remember when I came to work, we didn't even have electric adding machines. It was key the number in and pull the lever, you know.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, it's changed tremendous. It's just been really.
Now, the volume of business, has that dramatically increased?
Oh, yes. Oh, over periods of years, they sure has.
Okay. Well, now, people don't write so many checks anymore these days. That's changed a little bit too, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. People don't order checks. You know, I do check ordering too, and they don't order as many as they used to. And I talk to the check companies, and they tell me how it's really went down. I don't feel like ours has went down as much as they talk about how over the country it has gone down. Mm-hmm. You know, but the different check companies that we work for, they've told me how that nobody uses checks no more. But now I do. I don't care for this card system.
Well, now, you're not the longest tenured employee here, I guess, are you? Would maybe somebody top you there, maybe like Jack Reynolds?
Well, yes, he's been here about 3 or 4 years more than I have.
Okay. Okay.
Of course, I remember Jack the first day I worked, you know. And, of course, everybody's changed. I mean, we've aged and grew up. That's what we've done.
Gracefully.
Well, hopefully.
Well, I appreciate you taking a few minutes. Anything else you'd like to tell us about your time here at People's Bank in 60 years?
Well, I've enjoyed every minute of it. I can remember one time Joyce Lawson and myself decided we wanted to go to work at Park Bank in Knoxville. And Mildred got the hint that we was wanting to leave and go to Knoxville, and she called us in and told us, now, girls, it's going to cost you a lot more money. You're going to have to pay rent. You're going to have transportation, and you're a whole lot better off here with less pay.
Sounds like she convinced you.
Oh, she did. She convinced us, yeah. Law, one time she said, Joyce was real, we would decorate the Christmas tree. And Joyce, we was going to do it after work that afternoon. And Joyce just wanted to throw the icicles on the Christmas tree. And I wanted to barely hang them and let them hang down. You know, I was very careful. And we got into it over decorating that Christmas tree. And Mildred told us to go home and eat supper and come back. So then we was over a mad spell when we done that.
Okay.
Oh, I can remember well her sending us home for that.
Well, that was probably a pretty good move, wasn't
Oh,
it?
it was. Yeah, we done better from then on.
Okay. Well, now, you've probably not missed too many days here, except for maybe a vacation or two, have you?
Oh, I bet you to be off sick, I've not been off a week. Well, now when I had my children, yes, I mean, you know. Mm-hmm. But to say that I called in and said I was sick today or I had the flu. One time I had the flu, and I couldn't get out of bed. And Mildred says, now, a lot of people call in and say they're sick, but when you can't get out of the bed, Bullard, you do have the flu. And I think that's the only time that I ever missed, except maybe just a day or two.
Mm-hmm. Anything eventful along the way that maybe, of course, the President Kennedy shooting along the way, the assassination, that happened while you were here? Mm-hmm. Were you here at work that day?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes. And it came over the radio, and then some of the girls that worked here, their husbands was in the service at that time, and we thought that they dropped a bomb or something. You know, we thought something really, really had happened to us from other countries, but, of course, it was from him. And, of course, the towers in New York, and I went and was so thankful that I had been to the towers before they fell, because I can remember it well.
Oh, my. A lot of milestones.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I've done some traveling.
Anything special planned for your 60th anniversary on Friday, the 30th of June?
Oh, no, just get up and come to work.
Don't be late. Be right here on time.
Be on time, yes, yes.
Are you the first one in the door here usually?
No, I used to be. I had to sit and wait for the bank till we could come in the bank. But after I married, and of course right now I have my mother, and she's 96 and a half, will soon be 97, and she's having to live with me, and I'm having to take care of her. So I have to make sure she's settled in before I come to work in the mornings. But I get here before we open. And
sounds like you have some longevity in your genes.
well, most all of her cousins live to be 98 and 99. And I'm surprised because my mother broke her hip 5 days before she was 95, and everybody said, now that's it. They just don't get over it. Well, she's soon going to be 97, and she's still going and getting up every day, and yet to tell me that her hip hurts.
Oh, my.
And she broke the ball in her hip, so I just get up and take care of her.
Wow, that's something else. Of course, you have two beautiful daughters.
Yes, I have one in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. She's a curator. And then Kara, my youngest daughter, is MD, and she's doing a fellowship at Bayo Clinic there in Scottsdale, Arizona now. She's got 11 more months left in a 24-month fellowship in infectious disease.
Okay, now your oldest daughter's name is?
Kara.
Let's see now, in your other...
My oldest one is Susan.
Okay.
And Susan has two children, two little boys. They're my grandsons. And she's in a fellowship, too. She went back to Rochester, New York, Strong Museum, for a 2-month free fellowship that they offered. And she applied and got accepted. But she comes home on the weekends. But she's there out for 2 months. She'll be there.
Okay. Of course, your husband, Hutch, he was just a great friend of mine, a super fella.
Oh, Lord, laughed about everything. Hutch saw everything funny. He could just laugh about anything. I don't care how serious it was, there would be something funny in it.
Well, how'd you meet up with Hutch?
Well, That's a funny story.
And he found humor in that, I guess.
Oh, yes, he did. We closed at 2:00 back then. And I don't know, my eyes watering. I'm not crying, it just water. We would close at 2:00, and all we had to do was balance. Well, I had to wait till 5:00 because I didn't have a car at that time. And I had to wait till people from Cumberland Grocery, because that's who I rode to work with. And so I was going across the street, and the state workers had turned out and was coming home. And I don't remember exactly who was in the car with him, but he was driving. And he said, "There goes the woman that I'm going to marry." And I didn't even know what his name was. Didn't even know him. I don't know why he come up with that, but he told them. He told the boys that was in the car. He said, "Right there goes the woman I'm going to marry." And he came in the bank the next week and asked me for a date, and we set up to go. And I'm a doctor if he didn't come down with pneumonia, and we had to cancel that date. But then the next one, date that I had with him, we went to the Christmas parade in Knoxville. And I guess that was my first date with him, and we dated until March. And he said, "Well, it's one or two things. My gas bill to Speedwell is more than what I make with the state, and we're either going to have to marry or we're going to have to quit." So that's what happened.
Well, that was an interesting proposal. What year was that?
That was in March. It was just 3 months. We dated December and January and February, and then we got married the 14th of March.
What year?
63.
1963.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then he, of course, came down with cancer and died at the age of 59.
Great fella.
Oh, he was. He was a good husband, a lot of fun. We done a lot of trips together. One time we went on one of these tour trips. Well, we went on several of them. But there was only 2 men on that tour trip. It was him and R.L. Ayers. And the bus driver, we was driving, and we was going through, and I noticed it said Radford, Virginia. We was going to New York, I guess, that time, or Washington, D.C. one. And Hutch said, "Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop this bus." And it scared that driver to death. And he said, "What's wrong?" He said, "R.L., let's me and you get off here, and we'll be well when we come back through," because that was where they used to send the mental institute. You know? R.L. said, "Hutch, Hutch." But the bus driver did pull off to see if they wanted to get off and be well when we come back through. And he told me, he said, "Now I'm going to quit this going on tours," because he said it's like driving cattle. He said, you don't have time for nothing except what they're showing you, you know. And he wanted to get out, because that time we went to Washington. We were going to Washington, that's where it was. And that time, the cherry blossoms was blooming. And they told us that it was cold in Washington, to be sure and take warm clothes. Well, everything he took was a jacket and long sleeves. It was 80-something degrees the whole time we was there. And he didn't even have time to go get him a shirt or a short sleeve shirt or a light jacket or anything. And we had all those winter clothes on. He said, "Now, it's just like driving cattle." He said, "We're not going on no more of these tours."
Oh, my. Well, congratulations on 60 years. That's just so special.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate you coming by.
Well, thank you, Miss Mildred Asbury.
Well, you're welcome. Oh, gracious.